Middle East, a highly dynamic, fast changing, very challenging neighborhood, to come together and forge ways for cooperation. We look forward to participation from our session chair, Amr Bilal Sufi, who's a former federal minister for law and the founding president of the Research Society of International Law. And we are honored today to also be joined by Mr. Qasser Sheikh, who's the federal minister for the chairman of Board of Investment. So in a little bit of a patience time, we will be joined by our panelists, and then we'll delve deep into this session focused on West Asia and what it will take to foster regional economic integration. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, our session chair, Mr. Amr Bilal Sufi, former federal minister for law and founding president, Research Society of International Law, RSIL. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down. We're about to begin in a few moments. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Federal Minister for the Board of Investment, Mr. Qasar Ahmed Sheikh, Session Chair, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I, Hanan Hussain, on behalf of the Institute of Regional Studies, welcome you all to our session on overcoming challenges to regional economic integration in West Asia. This session will delve into key determinants of regional economic integration and provide informed insights from our experts. It is with pleasure that I now introduce our session chair, Mr. Amir Bilal Sufi, former Federal Minister for Law and founding President of the Research Society of International Law, to begin with proceedings, starting with opening remarks from President IRS, who's Ambassador George Salim. Over to you, sir, for the session, and come up for remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanan. Minister Saab, Janab Qasar Sheikh, Mr. Amir Bilal Sufi, my dear old friend, we were class fellows in college. Esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's such a pleasure to have you all today here for the very last session of our three-day conference themed Pathways to Peace and Prosperity in Times of Turbulence or Turbulent Times. I mentioned it before, when we envisaged this conference, we did not envisage times to become this turbulent, but they have. And that underlines the fragility of our region in terms of peace, in terms of security, in terms of the quest for development and prosperity, in terms of climate resilience challenges, in terms of ethnic and perspectives of faiths, in terms of connectivity, and in terms of the possibilities for integration of this region within itself and beyond with other regions, for which there's so much promise, but somehow a lot of that promise has not been realized yet. So this particular session, which focuses on connectivity and integration with West Asia. Now, West Asia is a very important region of the world. One of my ambassadorial assignments was in West Asia. And I know how dynamic that region is. It's a young region. It's blessed with natural resources to an extent which is beyond comprehension sometimes. There are countries like Qatar, small countries, a few hundred, couple of 100,000 population, and then if you see the natural resources that they have, or Saudi Arabia, of course, or the other GCC countries, or so many countries beyond that as well. And we see how the region is being transformed. Look at UAE, where they are today. Dubai has become a global brand. Saudi Arabia is changing so much beyond recognition. Riyadh, like it was mentioned in one of the sessions here today, yesterday, the Riyadh is now the epicenter of economic activity in the world. So with that type of promise, we have to explore what are the impediments, what are the challenges, what are the promise, what is the promise, and what needs to be done so that Pakistan, which direly needs investment, which greatly needs to build those linkages, and we have so much potential. One of the youngest populations in the world. Average of age of our population is just 21, or median age. Compare that to Italy, which is 48. Compare that to Germany, which is 46. Compare that to other European countries. In fact, I've been ambassador to many European countries, and their European says, they used to say with sort of, regret that we are dying societies. The future is yours, So with that type of promise, we really need to work on that. We have an excellent panel today, led by my dear friend Ahmed Bilal Sufi. We are very honored by the presence of our dear Minister Kaisar Sheikh, who is an expert in the area of investment promotion. We have such a glorious past in terms of the work that he has done in Pakistan and is still doing. So another panelist up, that we have today, experts that we have, so I'm very looking forward to a very informed, very fruitful, and a very insightful discussion. With these words, I thank you all for being here, and I invite Mr. Ahmed Bilal Sufi to take it from here. Thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Honorable Minister Kaisar Saab, Excellency Ambassador Hissam Saab, Excellency Johar Salim Saab, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu Alaikum. The topic is obviously very exciting today, and we have an excellent panel. The panel will give you some solutions and way forwards on how to create an economic integration in West Asia, a region and an area that we have less talked about in this context. So I will rather put my appreciation on record for the organizers and for Mr. Johar and his team to think and conceive of West Asia as an area for possible economic integration. As far as my dimension of having international law interest is concerned, I believe legal frameworks create that first foundational building block for integration. And then the trading community begins to come in. And then the best way forward, in my assessment and experience, is the B2B arrangement, or what we call the business to business arrangement. The government can offer facilitation, but the more you create opportunities for interaction amongst the business communities of whether it's Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and else, the greater are the chances that people begin to develop nexus of a positive nature, and it grows into a personal relationship, and those relationships then generate investment and economic opportunities. And from experience, I can tell you, Kaisar Saab has been on the board, has been one of the most greatest advocate of investment, private sector investment into Pakistan. And he knows for a fact that if the Board of Investment does, no matter how many shows it does, road shows in Europe, elsewhere, but a businessman in Brussels or London will pick up a phone and ask someone like him that here is a tender ad somewhere for Pakistani project. Should I come in or not? And it depends how that businessman friend responds. So the personal relationship have a strong premium in this. I will now request the panelist, one of my esteemed colleagues, I would say, because we have worked together on when his previous assignment, when he was in Pakistan Navy, a very able commander and a very astute person, a strategist in his own right, whether it was 1982 Law of the Sea Convention issues and so on. And then subsequently as a diplomat, he has grown to new heights in terms of his contribution in Saudi Arabia, and bringing Pakistan and handling those challenges has been an outstanding contribution. So may I request Ambassador Hissam Saab, and also request the gentleman having conversation on telephone to stay quiet for a while, because it certainly helps the environment. So Hissam Saab, over to you, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Minister for Investment, Mr. Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh, my dear friend Amir Bilal Sufi, I guess you're a former minister as well, and Ambassador George Salim, ladies and gentlemen, I see some Americans as well. So, Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. Let me just at the outset say I'm none of that, whatever Amir Bilal Sufi was mentioning just a while ago. Let me start on a lighter note. My son works for PAF in Saudi Arabia, and I have a grandson who is about 4 or 5 years old, 6 years, turning to be 6 years old. So my son called me this morning, and he said everything is okay. And I have a message from my grandson, and he goes on to say, Dada, you have a sword, so why don't you take a sword and fight, and then go on to the ship and then fight. So that's the background. So pardon me if my mind is preoccupied with things which are happening across this region and particularly in Pakistan. It is such an unfortunate and that we have a belligerent nation across our eastern border, which prevents any integration in South Asia. SAARC is dead, and so many other organizations, the frameworks within the context of South Asia and Greater West Asia. There is always a roadblock, an impediment from our eastern neighbor, but that is unfortunate. But before I talk about Saudi Arabia, I've been asked to talk about Saudi Vision 2030 and how can Pakistan benefit in economic integration with Saudi Arabia. Let me just say that the strategic direction as far as economic integration is concerned, we dished out our national security policy a few years ago, where we, as a state, we avowed that geoeconomics will be our priority in some deferring the geopolitics a little bit, because that's the path to peace. The integration and collective development of this area of over $1.5 billion or maybe over 2 billion rests in the economic integration, and that's the only way to progress. So our strategic direction or salvation or economic and political salvation lies in integrating with Middle East and Central Asia. And we are at such an important geostrategic location that we are a natural hub for the connectivity with our friends in the Middle East and the connectivity which we offer to the landlocked Central Asia. So even if we don't have an east-west connectivity, there are huge opportunities for Pakistan, and I think we'll do well if we integrate and the situation in Afghanistan settles down and sanity prevails and we're able to integrate both. Political integration is more or less there, but economic integration. This afternoon, I'll basically cover 3 areas. One is I'll sort of set the stage as to how can Pakistan leverage Saudi Arabia in terms of economic benefits and economic cooperation and collaboration. Then talk about their vision, our vision, and some of the specific areas where we can, because I'm more like it may be mundane, but when it comes to execution, that's where we falter. We have lots of strategies and policies and lots of talks, but when it comes to implementation, sadly, the experience has not been very good. So let me begin by thanking Ambassador George Salim for inviting me this afternoon. Like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia is very close to my heart, as indeed it is to the bulk of Pakistanis, and in fact, majority of Pakistan, because of our religious attachment. To their credit, Saudi Arabia has stood by Pakistan in all testing times, whether it is during war of 71 or 65, and more lately in terms of addressing our balance of payment issue and current account deficit issue and oil for deferred facilities, so on and so forth. So essentially, our security cooperation with Saudi Arabia and other Middle East countries and West Asian countries goes many decades back, particularly Navy, the armed forces, and we continue to enjoy a really exceptional relation like no one. Arguably, Saudi Arabia is one of our strategic partners and most trusted partners, along with perhaps China and Turkey, to name the others. Similarly, our political alignment, diplomatically, we've been aligned and we've vowed for each other, whether it is FATF or human rights and so many other. Unfortunately, the benefits which we could have accrued from our security and political cooperation, the relation is not, it can't be termed as a robust, because the economic relations remained below par. Our total trade volume between the two countries is about $3.5 billion, close to that, of which between 2.5 to 3 billion are imports and mostly the POL products, and our exports have hovered to nearly only about $350 million, take to $450 million. So that has been the case. Similarly, our social interaction between the two countries could improve. Similarly, the technological cooperation could improve. So the idea, the central idea with Saudi Arabia is to make the relations robust, create economic stakes of Saudi Arabia within Pakistan and vice versa. And that is how, in the long term, things could work out. Obviously, Ambassador Johar Salim mentioned that this Middle East is under transformation. It is the most happening place, and this is where the money is. And unfortunately, the region has been in turmoil, and that has partly precluded the integration because of the continuing perennial crisis, whether it is Iran standoff or an unfortunate genocide in Gaza. So these are some geopolitical factors that have impacted upon the integration of Saudi Arabia. But he partly mentioned Saudi Arabia is like never before. In 2015 and 16, Saudi Arabia ran a deficit of nearly $70 billion. And for the first time, perhaps on one other occasion, the Saudi economy contracted by 0.5%. And that was the time when they decided that they could no longer rely on oil revenues alone. And there was a day where you could get the oil for free. The oil prices crashed down to a level where there were lots of oil floating around the world, and you could just pay the freight and get it for free. So that was the state in 2015 and 16, and when the highly dynamic and very energetic His Royal Highness the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman took it upon himself to lead Saudi Arabia to new heights that we find our great friend to be in the current state. So 2015 and 16, that was the time. And that was also the time when they had sort of a misadventure in Yemen, and some other countries. But now the Saudi Arabia status as a state, whether it is Ukraine and Russia rapprochement, or whether it was rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and their relations with China, who happens to be their number one trading partner with close to about $45 to $50 billion trade annually. It's a new Saudi Arabia, a dynamic Saudi Arabia, a Saudi Arabia which is outgoing and encouraging people to come over. And thankfully, we can leverage Saudi's status as a state in the Middle East to advance our economic and other political interests. Obviously, the key drivers for any economic cooperation would be a geopolitical situation, a geoeconomic situation, a geolocation. All these factors take into account. More importantly, what is the enabling environment within the two partners or countries who want to collaborate? That's hugely important. And I leave it to your imagination as to what do we have to offer in terms of an environment which enables investment, whether it is from Saudi Arabia, from elsewhere. Obviously, we have issues of security. We have issues of legal framework. The Honorable Chair can shed more light on that. Particularly with respect to Saudi Arabia, they've had a really bad experience with respect to Tabarki Steel and a couple of other ventures which are still under litigation. Similarly, the most important, the minister is here, consistency of policies. Then we also have the structural issues of current account deficit and repatriation of their profits and things like that. But most importantly, one of the challenges which we face in our capacity to structure deals and to be able to execute large-scale projects is sadly not up to the mark. The capacity, the procedures are antiquated. Anybody who wants to do work in Pakistan will find it hard to make the two ends meet. So we need big transformation with respect to the governance structure, with respect to not only economics, but also across the board, whether it is law and order and so many other things. As far as the Vision 2030 is concerned, and I think it's the most dynamic and most imaginative and transformative vision that there could be. And the taste of the pudding is in eating it. As mentioned, go to Saudi Arabia and see for yourself the change. There were three key themes as far as a thriving economy, an ambitious nation, and a vibrant society. And look at the achievements today that they have made, particularly with respect to a vibrant society. Look at the changes that have taken place. And look at the empowerment, the number of objectives, which I can't, the time doesn't allow me to go. But as far as the thriving economy is concerned, they're looking at foreign direct investment. They want to indigenize. They want FDI to be at least 5.6% of their GDP. They also would want the small and medium enterprises to flourish. They have brought down the unemployment rate, which in 2015 was 14%, and they have brought it down from 11 to 7% now. The gender equality, the number of women within the government structure and elsewhere is phenomenal. And the change continues. They created a sovereign wealth fund, public investment fund, and they want their assets to go to nearly 3 trillion Saudi riyals. And they're well on the way. They have a privatization. They have shed some shares of their family silver Aramco, and so on and so forth. So all in all, it's very dynamic and also offers us great opportunities to be able to collaborate. The most important factor within the Vision 2030 has been their program of Vision Realization Program. Every year, a professional outfit like KPMG or EY, things like that, they have intermediate objectives, they have key performance indicators, and every single item is judged against And admittedly, they have, while the targets are set for 2030, they have exceeded their expectation in some, while they are still lagging. And they're short of investment at the moment because the number of projects like the NEOM, the RIA, and so many other projects which they have, the Cube, which they have undertaken, so they're a bit short of that. Thankfully, we have CPEC, which roughly, so while I was ambassador in Saudi Arabia, so I coined this idea of making Vision 2030 and CPEC as twin sisters, because the timing and the phases were more or less the same. In 2030, the phase 3 of the CPEC was supposed to finish. So whereas Saudi Arabia's economic roadmap or the blueprint is Vision 2030, ours was based on CPEC 1 and now CPEC 2. And more recently, we've also had a vision called Uran. And let me just go back. We had first vision in 2010, then we had a vision for 2025, and now we have this vision Uran, which is for 2035. It's a blueprint, but unfortunately, the mechanism for implementing from vision to reality, which is the most important aspect, that historically has not been our forte. So therefore, the time is ripe. We are also open to invite other investment in the CPEC, which wasn't the case during the CPEC phase 1. The economic zones which we want to establish, and similarly Saudi Arabia wants to establish. So that's a huge avenue which the overall strategic framework exists for cooperation. Specific areas that can be sort of tapped. I think the first and the fourth, the Saudis want to indigenize their defense production by 50% by 2030. That's one of their, so that's what they have created Saudi Arabia Military Industries, SAMI and GAMI, where we have the opportunity and we have the skill where we need to cooperate. That's one area where we can offer something. Similarly, we have nearly 3 million expats, Pakistanis in Saudi Arabia, and they contribute the largest share of the remittances which comes to Pakistan. It used to be 6 billion. I think it will touch 8 or 9 billion this year. Similarly, the other areas is the disruptive technologies, the onset of disruptive technologies, which just requires human skills. And thankfully, Pakistanis have the necessary skills to abet Saudi Arabia in their dream for the semiconductor industries which they want to develop, and also the other Internet of Things. And there are a few companies which have already established, like Systems is doing a good job, and so many others companies which are. Minerals is another. I think for the want of time, I'll just skip through these. What we need from Saudi Arabia is petrochemicals. We have our capacity is only 47% refining capacity, so we have to expend nearly $10 billion every year to import refined products of fuel. Similarly, the refineries that we have are operating at less than 30% of efficiency. They are not environmental friendly, and that is one area I think the Minister would do well if we can establish the refinery, which we have been hoping for the last 10 years. Similarly, Saudi Arabia obviously is looking for food security, and agriculture is our forte. So these are the areas which I think everybody is aware. And then obviously on top of that, the security cooperation can continue to progress as has been progress. Couple of challenges which I've not mentioned, just to conclude. I think, unfortunately, we don't have the capacity or exploitable surplus needed by China, by Saudi Arabia. The other factor is that as ambassador, we were looking for, there are a lot of construction projects, as you know, going on in this. We don't have a construction company within Pakistan that can boast a portfolio of not even $300 million, I say. Because that's the yardstick. They're looking for a top of the line companies to come in Saudi Arabia. And there is so much of work that could be done through the construction of whether it is NEOM or DIA or Qiddiya and so many other projects that are ongoing. In hospitality, I see Balani Saab is here. In hospitality sector, they need HR and they need qualified HR, qualified, certified to the standards of Europeans or the US. So overall, the economic cooperation between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and as indeed other Gulf countries, is not where it should be, the kind of relations, the political and other relations which we have. So the scope is there. That's the only place which has money. And I think it is time that we exploited this opportunity to its fullest potential. We have the capability. We just need to put our act together to be able to cash in on that. And the goodwill that exists between our countries in the Middle East and West Asia. Thank you so much. Sorry for taking a bit longer than, but I'll be happy to answer any questions during the question and answer section. Thank you.
While we always focus on investment coming into Pakistan, we should also consider the opportunities that markets like Saudi Arabia and others offer to us. Because once we are able to export the human resource to them or encourage our entrepreneurs, construction contractors and others to invest, the remittances could do a lot of trick for us in a positive sense. And also one other point that you mentioned, Ambassador Saab, was about how to package your product and how to do the documentation for the project financing and so on, because that's something that every foreign entity which is coming into Pakistan, they are now doing things far more professionally than they used to. Gone are the days when, you will have a king or a monarch who will say, here's an X amount of money for you. They've hired professional chartered accountants and consultants. And those consultants want to have a corresponding consultant in Pakistan to interface with them, to speak the same language on terms, on returns and so on, and feasibilities and etc. So I would recommend, as part of the session recommendation, Ambassador Johar Saab, each province can think of having a brief one-page legislation whereby a chartered accountant firm could be made available readily to the provincial public-private partnership ventures so that it supports the government in all its interactions, interfaces it with foreign delegations, and provides a professional approach so that the money could eventually come in. Now I would like to request Ms. Dr. Hussain, who is with us available virtually, his introduction. He's a very celebratory in his own way. He's a PhD in comparative literature for University of Massachusetts Amherst. He's been a senior fellow at American Task Force on Palestine. He's a senior resident scholar at Arab Gulf States Institute in Washington and a weekly columnist for National or UAE, and a well-known scholar. May I request Dr. Hussain to please kindly share his views with us?
Thank you very much indeed. It's very nice to be with you. I apologize. I fell down and knocked out some teeth, so that's why I have this odd dental appearance. Trust me, it's a very temporary situation. I just wanted to explain it's not my usual. So I'm very happy to join you. It's rather early here, but I'm very, very delighted to be with you. Now, I think the most important aspect of investment and peace and prosperity regarding Southwest Asia, and also South Asia, of course, because we're thinking in terms of Pakistan as well. But when it comes to Southwest Asia and the Middle East, I think the most important impediment to economic growth and greater regional economic integration is obviously instability. So I'd like to look at some of the key causes of instability and then suggest that economic integration and certain kinds of economic integration in particular are a really important remedy to that. The first source of instability that is really the most dangerous is the one that's most resistant to solution, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is currently being played out in Israel's genocidal war in Gaza. But also, I think momentum is building in the West Bank. I think the right-wing Israeli government is preparing to try to seize a potential opportunity caused by instability and by friendly voices in the Trump administration to attempt annexation of large parts of the occupied West Bank and possibly much or all of the Gaza Strip as well, although I think the real attention is on the West Bank. During this Trump administration. Now, it remains to be seen whether events and Washington's indulgence will permit this. But I think there's a lot of confidence on the Israeli right that at some point in the next 3 years or so, they will be able to figure out how to do it. And there have already been 40,000 Palestinians displaced in the northern West Bank in the past year. All the attention is on Gaza because of the tens of thousands of people who are being killed and the way in which that war reverberated and caused or sort of prompted instability in Lebanon between Hezbollah and Israel, brought the Houthis into a conflict with the Israelis, with several Arab states, and with the United States, which apparently has been resolved according at least to the Trump administration by an informal ceasefire, but we'll see how well that holds because the Houthis are noted for not keeping their word if their interactions with Saudi Arabia and the UAE are anything to judge by. And also their relations with other Yemenis. They are, let's say, a wild bunch. So it may or may not stick. And ultimately leading to the downfall of the notorious Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria, which is, a real game changer in the Middle East. Nonetheless, this conflict, which has been centered in Gaza and which it looks like Israel is about to, make a major expansion again in Gaza, I do think the momentum is shifting to the West Bank, where Israeli military attention remains focused in Gaza, but I think political attention is in the West Bank. So one of the real issues here is how the region is going to cope with Israel's unfinished business with the Palestinians. On October 7, 2023, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged a mighty vengeance. Those are his words. And he's used the word vengeance many times since then. And that, I think, is what is going on, is a question of revenge and vengeance. And the question is, how far does that extend to ethnic cleansing, to rendering a place like Gaza uninhabitable, and perhaps to swallowing up large chunks of the occupied West Bank? And how will that reverberate to create further instability in the region? The second question is, what about Iran's role as a destabilizing factor? Iran has been a destabilizing factor in the Arab world, particularly because it has had a policy over the past 30 or 40 years largely of projecting its influence, particularly since the end of the Iran-Iraq War, and above all, since the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, of using a network of Arab militia groups and armed gangs in neighboring countries to project its influence and power. And I'm thinking here primarily of Hezbollah and the Hashd al-Sha'bi PMF groups in Iraq, various brigades in Assad, Syria, and to a lesser extent, the Houthis and Hamas, who are somewhat independent of the IRGC Quds force, that is to say of Iran, but also have developed a close kind of patronage relationship where they are reliant on Iran for arms. And it's, the Houthis being five Shia are a bit closer to Iran than Hamas, which is a Muslim Brotherhood organization and never fit well into the Iranian alliance, but it still is connected with it in a marriage of convenience. This is all, I think, implicitly on the table in the talks between Iran and the United States that are going on in Muscat. These talks are scheduled to resume in a few days, I think in 2 or 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, on the 9th, I believe. And all the saber rattling and walking away and all of that, I take to be kabuki. I think both Iran and the United States have a tremendous interest in coming to an arrangement because the alternative for both is unpalatable. It's more confrontation. This has proven fruitless in the past. Iran needs time and space to regroup, rethink its national security strategy, rethink the whole way it approaches the region, and it needs some time to rebuild internally and externally, and to rethink how it manages this network of still loyal, of Arab client groups like Hezbollah and the Iraqi groups and others who are still useful, but who failed in their primary role of providing a forward defense against Israel and the United States, and providing a way of Iran to project power. I think that was tested and ultimately failed. The loss of Assad is by far the biggest factor in changing Iran's calculations, and that really weakens their hand tremendously. The United States, on the other hand, does not want to be forced into confronting an Iran that is weaponizing its nuclear stockpiles and feel forced to launch a preemptive attack, which it will do. The plans have been there for over a decade. The B-2 bombers are there at Incirlik, at Al Udeid, at Diego Garcia, and even from the United States with refueling over the Atlantic. The local regional bases are not, even though they're available for B-2 bombers, deliver huge conventional bunker buster and other massive ordnance bombs that could destroy Iran's nuclear facilities in a matter of days. It could even be done directly from the United States. These plans are ready to go at any given moment. And all that has to be done is for the USG to determine to a certainty that Iran is moving decisively towards weaponization. So for Iran, a sprint to a bomb is a sprint to oblivion. And for the United States, such a war would lead immediately to thousands of deaths, whether it's military or civilians. And Iran's ability to retaliate may not be as strong as it was when Hezbollah's arsenal was intact and had not been taken by surprise after Israel accelerated that war suddenly when the pagers exploded last fall all over Lebanon, and then within 3 weeks Hezbollah was essentially flattened. They were holding themselves back because their primary role was not to fight a war over Gaza and Hamas. It was to protect Iran from an attack by Israel and the United States. So Hezbollah never threw its punch, and then all of a sudden found itself relieved of its power by a massive Israeli assault. If Iran and the United States were to come to terms, then I think the ability of the region to calm down would be greatly enhanced. And the powers in the region that wish to focus on economic development and on developing their internal economies, their political legitimacy, etc., and are turning inward rather than and away from conflict and confrontation, which they had their fill of, especially during the 2 years of maximum pressure versus maximum resistance at the end of the first Trump administration. And I'm thinking here particularly of Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They really want the United States to come to a reasonable agreement with Iran and vice versa. And they're using their good offices with both to push them in that direction. And they are hoping very much for a deal. This is in contrast to 2015 and 2016, when they did not openly oppose the negotiations between the Obama administration and Iran, but they were unhappy with them, and they were never thrilled about the JCPOA until it became a functioning entity. Then they did oppose Trump's sudden withdrawal from it, and I think they would like the US very much to get back into an understanding with Iran that removes the potential of a sudden conflict in which they would again be potential targets of convenience. All right. So if the United States and Iran are able to come to terms, certainly that removes one of the biggest sources of instability in the region and of conflict and confrontation. I don't know what can be done about Israel and the Palestinians until US policy moderates itself, or until Israel decides that it has to come to terms with Palestinians. But on the Iranian front, that source of instability can be managed at least for several decades through an agreement that lasts, say, 20 years, 25 years with the United States. And I think the chances of that are pretty good. I'll close with this because I don't want to take up too much time, but for sure, the Gaza war did threaten to plunge Southwest Asia into a new phase of conflict and confrontation. The war did spread a bit. It spread into Lebanon. It involved the Houthis. It involved some groups in Iraq, and ultimately did lead to the downfall of Assad. But it did not create the all-out regional war that could have happened, and that I think the most militant factions in Hamas that authored the October 7 attack on southern Israel were hoping for. It just didn't happen, as I say, because Iran never found it to be necessary to do that, and wanted to hold back from that in its own interests, and wisely so. All right. Under such circumstances, then, the region is poised to return to a drift towards what I've been calling consolidation, retrenchment, and maneuver. Consolidation meaning keep what you can get, you keep what you need and what you can hold at a reasonable cost-benefit analysis. Retrenchment, where you focus inward on building your economy, rebuilding your political legitimacy and your military power. And maneuver, meaning you pursue your interests through means other than armed, whether direct or indirect, either through direct force or through proxies, armed proxies. And this was the prevailing spirit in the region, except for Iran, to a large extent, before the October 7 attack. And I think there's a real mood to go back to it. And if the US can come to terms with Iran, that will be a huge move in that direction. Certainly, you see countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia moving to try to expand their influence through investment. They are one of the things that Donald Trump will be pressed on in his visit to the Gulf, May 13 to May 16 upcoming, is how can these countries invest in Syria and engage in reconstruction in Syria without violating US sanctions and without provoking the US Treasury Department. they will be looking for pathways because they want to extend their influence in Syria
Just
through
for the,
investment.
given the political situation and the fact that our keynote speaker will have to unfortunately leave very soon to address the parliament, with a very brief apology, I would recommend that if you could kindly conclude in about 30 seconds, and we'll revert
Yes, I
back
will.
to the Q&A section going forward.
My
Thanks.
final thought is that shared infrastructural development, whether it is hard, such as shared energy, shared electricity infrastructure, shared pipelines, shared port facilities, shared railways, shared transportation, or digital. The UAE has gone heavily into AI. Saudi Arabia, again, is trying to transform its economy. The whole region needs greater integration, both in the geophysical realm and in the digital realm. And that will provide an incentive that will push countries, again, to stay with conciliation and compromise and some mutual interests, and stay away from confrontation and conflict. That's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ibish. Now, without further ado, I would request Honorable Federal Minister Kasra Ahmed Sheikh Saab, who is the Federal Minister for the Board of Investment, who has a very strong grip on what it will take for Pakistan's investment opportunities in West Asia to capitalize. And given yesterday's heinous event, it further demonstrates his participation here, further demonstrates Pakistan's commitment to peace and prosperity across regions and across various themes. So, Mr. Kasra Ahmed Sheikh, please. Come on stage. Thank you, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasul al-Kareem. Honorable Ahmed Bilal Sufi Saab, Janab हमारे International Institute of Regional Development President, Janab Johar Salim Saab, और मेरे ambassador हमारे Hasham bin Sadiqi Saab. Similarly, I am very glad and would have liked to visit this forum. I know the International Institute of Studies. This is a real regional institute. This is a real doing lot of good work, and I have been representing here, coming here earlier also. So this is an opportunity for, because my time to speak is about 10 minutes. Our cabinet meeting is 3:30. ये regional आज जो आपने ये किया pathway to peace and prosperity in turbulent times, most relevant and अच्छा टॉपिक जो आपने रखा है, और मैं समझता हूँ इस पे बहुत ज़्यादा बात होनी चाहिए आजकल के हालात में. The investment is my mission, and I'm very glad that I have this ministry, which is very close to me, and I think that there is great opportunity to do a lot of work in this federal ministry. Presently, each and every country is giving emphasis on the investment. All the countries, particularly, you must have witnessed that President Trump just came into power, and he initiated that aim to have more and more investment in the United States. And then there was a tariff conflict, and particularly to each and every country, he wished that the trade balance should be in favor of US, or otherwise there should be more tariff. So when Saudi Arabia invited President Trump, he asked Saudi Arabia to commit for investment of $1 trillion, 1,000 billion US dollars. So this is a huge investment, but because Saudi Arabia knew the significance of relation with United States, they agreed to invest in United States $1,000 billion, $1 trillion US, and then President Trump is visiting them first. Similarly, recently, Prime Minister Modi from India, 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago, visited Saudi Arabia, and there was MOU signing of $100 billion of investment in India. So Saudi Arabia, the regional, we are discussing about the trade and investment. Pakistan, of course, we are very good friends, and with all these countries of Gulf, and there's a Gulf Cooperation Council also. We feel that there should be free trade between Pakistan and Gulf Council. But you see, still, apart from, of course, we are making our efforts. Our government is doing all well and very much hard work about it. But up to now, significant investment has not been pledged to Pakistan. And even Saudi Arabia, their investment mission visited a few months ago. But up to now, we are not having any pledge of at least significant investment, which we should have. Saudi did promise for a refinery in Gwadar, and similarly, they also want to have petrochemicals with them. लेकिन अभी भी उनकी तरफ से वो सिग्निफिकेंट इसकी वजूहत क्या है? देखिए, एक पीरियड था 60s में जब पूरी दुनिया पाकिस्तान की तरफ देख रही थी. हम बता रहे थे कि किस तरह इन्वेस्टमेंट होती है, और पाकिस्तान was growing at the rate of 6 to 7%. In 60s and 70s, our second and third 5-year plans were very successful. I vividly remember that my very close friend, late Dr. Mahbub Haq, I was very, in 1992, he was the finance minister of Pakistan. And at that time, similar time, his close friend, both of them were friends, Manmohan Singh in India, he was the finance minister of India, and both studied in the same Cambridge University. Because he was, Dr. Mahbub Haq was very close to me, he told me himself. Then they know each other very well, and Manmohan Singh, at that time being a finance minister, telephoned and asked Dr. Mahbub Haq that Pakistan is growing very fast, and let us know some tips, give us some ideas how India can grow with similar growth rate of 6-7%. At that time, Indian growth, IMF used to comment on them that they have a Hindu rate of growth. It is very clear. That was in World Bank and all that. They were mentioning about it, and IMF were reluctant for India, and they were favoring Pakistan. But what happened after that? You have yourself mentioned it's consistent policies which we should have. The bureaucratic red tapeism. The people tell to us, because my family is in business since 142 years. We had a business. My great-grandfather went from Chennai to Calcutta, and at that time, Muslims were only in leather business. So my great-grandfather started Calcutta, that leather business, and then later on, we had business in Madras, Agra, and before partition to Karachi. So what was the reason? You see, why this, there was a good time to Pakistan. Everyone was viewing towards us. और फिर हमने क्या किया? हमने एकदम ये नेशनलाइज कर दी हर चीज. उसके बाद रीजन में हमारे रिलेशन जो है, जिस तरह पूरे रीजन में आपका फर्स्ट ही है फॉरेन पॉलिसी फॉर ए बेटर फ्यूचर अलाइनिंग डिप्लोमेसी एंड डेवलपमेंट गोल्स. तो हमारी फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो हमारे साथ मकार दुश्मन जो कुछ अब कर रहा है, वो चाहता ही नहीं था. पहले दिन से ही उन्होंने नहीं चाहा. हमने पूरी कोशिश की. इसमें ये नहीं कि हमारा कोई नहीं, हमें भी और ज्यादा आगे हाथ बढ़ाना चाहिए था. कई बार हमारी तरफ से कोशिश हुई, कई बार उनकी तरफ से भी कोशिश हुई, लेकिन इवेंचुअली हम आई टू आई नहीं देख सके. ये भी एक रीजन हुआ. उनके यहाँ तो इन्वेस्टमेंट चली गई, हमारे यहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं आई. और फिर हमारे वेस्टर्न बॉर्डर पे भी हालात जो है ईरान के साथ सैंक्शन हैं और अफगानिस्तान के साथ भी मुसलसल जंग रही उस रीजन में, तो हमें ये देखना है कि हाउ टू हैव मोर, बिकॉज विदाउट इन्वेस्टमेंट नाउ नो कंट्री कैन डेवलप. Our huge population of 240, 250 million people, if we don't have the investment required to us to have value-added industry, you mentioned rightly that we don't have a export surplus. But I'm in business. I know I had been president Karachi Chamber of Commerce Industry in 1987, about 38 years ago. Since then, we are demanding the same thing. You see, there's no consistency of policies. There is a bureaucratic hurdle. Now, I, being a minister of BOI, we had yesterday a detailed meeting. Madam Marine Iftikhar is here. She is our additional secretary. So we asked all the ministries, and we are making it simpler. You see, no need to get so many permissions. To register a drug, we averagely need 2 years to get registered, to go to the various. And in the meantime, that drug is that has been new invention in that. So these are the things. We know each other. We had been advocating our governments, various governments, but we could not do it. We would have to do it. Otherwise, it's very difficult in the very fast world of digital growth, of digital digitization. We should have more and more our students and should be capable, as you rightly, Mr. Bilal, mentioned, that we should have chartered accountants, we should have technical people. And now, of course, we started later. Dr. Mahbubullah used to say all the time, human development is that is the factor. We have that human development. We should develop that. We could have more and more IT universities. We could have more and more medical colleges. What happened? Engineering college. What happened? We in government sector don't have medical colleges. So even today, most of our students, I went to Kyrgyzstan and I saw that all India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh students in huge number are there in Kyrgyzstan. And why we could not have more colleges here in the government sector? Because the private sector, they are getting their fee of abnormally high, more than 3 to 4 times to that Kyrgyzstan fees. So we emphasize that. I myself established now, I gave, our friends gave land, and we established FAST National University, one of the best campus in Chandigarh. So my point is that, of course, there are hurdles. Of course, our neighbors are not in favor of our development. But you see, we should have done our human development, our huge number of population which we have. We should have benefited from that. And now we have learnt about it because we have realized it. Our nation has realized that we have become so low in the human development, and our ranking in the world, in the cost of, in the ease of doing business is also not remarkable. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished participants here, this topic is of very big interest. We have taken initiative. Our Honorable Prime Minister has given emphasis on these developments, and our indicators have become much better. You can yourself witness that our policy rate, which was hindering to the investment, that in 1 year has dropped from 22% to 11%. Similarly, our inflation has been reduced to lowest in the last 6 decades. So the opportunity is there. And of course, foreign direct investment, they always see what is the bottom up, what is the bottom line. Our stock exchange is booming, one of the best market in the world in last year. So if our profitability is good, if we have good people who know the technology, then of course there is opportunity. And if India can have a contract of $100 billion, why can't Pakistan have at least $25 billion from Saudi Arabia, who are very close friends? So I feel that future is, of course, opportunity is there. We would have to work hard, and all of our nation has to have a vision. You see, people feel that now Pakistan is not has no potential, and many of our educated people are going outside. I assure that even in next the speed with which our government is emphasizing on all these things, and the investment which we feel that there is the only option. I myself desired to become the Minister for Investment, and it was my 32 years effort. I had 7 elections, and that was the consistent effort. I wanted that we should be able to deliver something. Of course, our Pakistani people are intelligent. They are very hardworking, and they know that they have the vision. We are less than none. But you see, our neighbor who don't want that Pakistan should develop with this fast speed. I think we should show to them, we should deliver to them with our deeds, with our efforts, with our results. So I very much thankful to this forum to give me this opportunity to talk. And so I wish you all the success. I'm very pleased to be there here in your forum. Because of our cabinet meeting, I have to leave. So thank you very much. So nice of you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Before you depart, we will request a group photo. The team of the IRS, please kindly join us on the stage so we can have the group photo. We are grateful for your participation, for your commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, we will revert now to the Q&A session very shortly after the departure of our Honorable Minister. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. Now we proceed towards the question and answer session. We have 3 questions in total, which will be directed to our expert. For the proceedings, I pass it on to our session chair, Mr. Sufi, who can take things forward from there.
ये वाला बस ये वाला नहीं ये चल रहा है एक चल रहा है एक चल रहा है चलिए मैं उधर से कर लेता हूँ Thank you very much. We have 3 questions, and as per the procedure set, the questions have been sent in writing. So the first question is, in the current Hindutva-led war scenario in our region, how do you see the status of Saudi and UAE investments in India? In India. Okay. यार ये आपका भाई ये सरीना वालों ये आपका सही स्पीकर्स ऑन नहीं हो रहे काइंडली इनको एड्रेस करें इस सरीना की तरफ से कौन है सरीना की मैनेजमेंट का कौन नौजवान इधर मौजूद है एक सरीना वालों ने 2 काम किए हैं एक स्पीकर बंद कर दिया दूसरा ये जीना इतना ऊंचा रखा है कि जो उस पर कदम रखता है वो लड़खड़ाता है सो द स्टेयरकेस टू spotlight you fumble before you get there. सही जी ये स्पीकर्स ऑन करवाइए ये वाले स्पीकर्स ऑन करवाइए
Thank you very much for the question.
जी प्लीज
You see, foreign policy is not about either or. The relations with one is not at the cost of the other. The beauty of foreign policy is that you have to manage and balance relations between. Look at China. The trade between China and India is in excess of $100 billion. At the same time, it continues to be our strategic partner. Look at India. They get the best of the weapons from the US. They also get the best of the weapons from Russia. So the question of Saudi Arabia's enhanced economic cooperation between the 2 countries should not bother us till such time that it does not affect relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. To their credit and to Pakistan's credit, in every forum, there has been a congruence of ideas and a congruence of strategic interests. We were at variance to Saudi Arabia's policy with respect to Syria when Assad was in power. We had also a number of our policy towards Iran was at variance to what Saudi's policies were towards Iran. So therefore, the question of Saudi investment, whether it is in the Reliance Petroleum, has to be seen in the context that they want to hedge the future of their oil to the clients which they have. And their number 1 client is obviously China, Japan, Korea, and India. And that's where the Saudi investment in petroleum is concerned. Therefore, we shouldn't be worried as long as our strategic relations between whether it is UAE or Saudi Arabia, more specifically with respect to Saudi Arabia, they are ironclad. Deep inside their hearts, they know that if push comes to shove, Pakistan will be there for the security of Saudi Arabia. And no question, they have no doubts about it. There is abundance of goodwill. Unfortunately, we find it hard to understand that that goodwill has not been transformed or translated to actual projects on ground. I can talk about the refinery projects. It does not make economic sense for Saudi Arabia to establish a refinery in Pakistan. But yet, at the request of Pakistan, they were willing to establish a 600,000 barrels per day refinery in Gwadar. But unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, and most definitely on our part, we did not have a bankable feasibility study with respect to the refinery, and we took far too long, and the opportunity perhaps is now behind us.
Yeah, I think that's true. Can I just add something? I think that's exactly right especially about Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. I think the UAE also wants to balance relations, its own relations between Pakistan and India, and is looking for investment opportunities. But UAE is more deeply involved in a regional project, which is the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, which is not kind of, I think, anything that should be considered threatening or competitive to Pakistan. In fact, it could be parallel to investments in Pakistan. There's nothing, absolutely incompatible with Pakistani interests. It is perhaps aimed at being competitive with China. And UAE is more enmeshed in that project than Saudi Arabia is. And I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you very much. The next question is, can Pakistan leverage lessons from its past development visions to make initiatives such as Udan Pakistan regionally appealing? Ambassador Saab, maybe you wish to respond to it. I tell you.
As far as I briefly mentioned about the two visions, Udan and Vision 2030. As you may understand, that the taste of pudding is in eating it. So the most important factor is from vision to reality. Udan is a very well articulated document covering entire aspects. But when it comes to implementation, that remains to be seen. Secondly, the vision has to be carried by the entire nation. You go to Saudi Arabia, ask an average person, what is Vision 2030? And the chances are that he will be able to tell you, because he sees before his eyes the transformation. You ask half of the people sitting here in this hall, what is Udan? The chances are that they have never seen the framework is there. It's just question of implementation, and obviously the number one E in that is exports, because of the structural problem with respect to the current account deficit will only go if we are able to generate dollars through remittances and through foreign direct investment, and most importantly, exports. And till such time, the private sector is enabled for investments and for progress, I don't think so. There is an appetite between G to G investments, whether it is related to CPEC, or whether it is related to the other countries and Pakistan government. It is the impetus has to be provided, and the enabling environment to provide it to the private sectors who have the investment. And I know there are people who are investing in Portugal, in Vietnam, and in a number of other places, in Qatar, and so on and so forth. So the same could be diverted towards Pakistan, and regional integration can take place.
I think that one of the particular areas we really need to improve is actually Sufi Saab's area, in terms of our legal framework and mechanisms. For example, for foreign investors, one thing is really important. What are the dispute resolution mechanisms? What are the possibilities of contract enforcement? What is the statutory mechanism? Do you have this sort of, really one window operation in its true sense? I think SIFC has improved things in that regard, definitely. So that was a step in the right direction. But there's so much more that we need to do. Because see, for instance, when we talk about Saudi Arabia, there's a 3 million strong Pakistani diaspora there. Now, if that diaspora, which is, which is a high-earning diaspora, they send $8 to $9 billion of remittances every year. But imagine if we could entrust them in investing in Pakistan, how much more they can send. Just one example here, the Centaurus in this city. That's probably the one building which is as per the European and UAE standards.
Yeah.
And that was built by somebody, some Pakistani whom I know actually, based in Saudi Arabia. There's so much investment which can come here. But I think we have to really work hard on our sort of, this statutory legal frameworks, bureaucracy. SIFC definitely is a step in the right direction, but we need much, much more because SIFC can cater for the governments, for other governments, for big companies, perhaps multinationals as well. But it can't cater for all those Pakistanis, high earners, and they want to invest here because they can't even approach IFC. So I think we really need to work in that area. The other thing is, I think, and that is where Pakistan needs to work a lot. Skills building. We have a young population, one of the biggest in the world, but we haven't really worked hard on skills development. With skills development, because see, that could be a great incentive for investment if somebody knows that they have the skilled labor available here. One of the things that my industrialist friends complain about, and these are some of the top exporters of Pakistan, when I say, why don't you enlarge your operations and become multinationals, what is your biggest obstacle? And they don't talk about capital, they don't talk about other things. They say lack of skilled manpower. So that is another area. Probably Germany could be a great example in terms of vocational training. They have the best system in the world. There are other examples as well. But I think we really need to work to make it attractive. And of course, the security situation is the same for all. We need to improve that because I've been ambassador to Bahrain and I know how sensitive Arab investors are about the security situation in any country. So there are a number of areas where we can really improve, and that could help us attract much larger investment than we have currently.
It's ironic that this is a shared issue because, the question of transparency, enforceability of contracts, and rule of law when it comes to investment, foreign direct investment, is a problem also for example, for Saudi Arabia, which, has these big investment conferences. They're about to have another huge US-Saudi investment conference with Trump and all these CEOs. And they're going to once again talk about their investments around the world and in the US and what have you. But they are going to be frustrated again, in all likelihood, in getting foreign direct investment into Saudi Arabia, even in partnerships, because foreign investors do not have confidence that if there is a dispute with a local partner, whether it's the government or some other connected person in Saudi Arabia, there's anyone who can give them a fair hearing for contract resolution, dispute, etc., and that there's a problem of rule of law. This is a shared problem, and it's sort of ironic that this is something that you would be concerned about in getting Gulf Arab investment. I can assure you it is a problem for the Gulf countries in getting Western investment in foreign direct investment in their countries as well. So, anyone who wants people to invest better do, due diligence on rule of law and transparency and enforceability.
Thank you very much. The last question is, how can we project industrialists from Pakistan to contribute in regional economic integration? Let me answer this. I think industrialists in Pakistan, entrepreneurs, need to be given, first of all, enormous respect domestically. Those who are able to contribute meaningfully to an industry in Pakistan, they deserve respect and a certain degree of humility as well. And then they should be allowed opportunities to interface very periodically with the counterparts in West Asian region. They already have a lot of links at a private level, but they need to be facilitated further, and tax concessions and other things need to be provided for. Lastly, this brings us to the end of the questions, but with your permission, if I may just say something that you were talking about the rule of law framework and also the framework relating to dispute resolution. I entirely agree that builds confidence of an investor when he has a dispute resolution mechanism in-house. I'm glad to inform that the judiciary of Pakistan more recently began to respond to this issue. And they have not only set up commercial courts with specific trained judges who look into commercial matters, but they've also encouraged alternative dispute resolution as a mandatory obligation at the time when such matters come to courts at the higher level. And 2 or 3 recent judgments demonstrate the keenness of the judicial arm of the state, that investors, people who are in Pakistan having any dispute, they should opt for alternative dispute resolution. But anyhow, there are a lot of issues, a lot of questions that we wanted to respond to and also to entertain, but regrettably, we don't have enough time. So with your permission, I would like to bring the session to a closure. With thanking you, Ambassador Saab and Ambassador Hisham Saab, for some very useful, meaningful comment that you have been able to take. Gee, after that.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks. Now I invite President. Gee, sir, please.
Nick, we are short on time. Gee.
So I want to talk to the young Pakistanis here. All these topics which are covered here is not giving them the right message. I'm sorry. I'm a trained investment banker at ex-vice president of Merrill Lynch and Royal Bank of Canada.
MashaAllah.
I know what I'm talking about. You're talking about investment. Let me tell you how investment works and who has the money. Just the Saudis don't have the money. The UAE, Mubadala, Sama, Kuwait Investment Authority, they are not the only ones which you should be looking for as Pakistanis. The money belongs to private equity. You need to attract private equity to the country. And let me tell you who has the money. The largest pool of capital in the world is controlled by the overseas Chinese. They control $40 trillion. It's more than anybody. $40 trillion is overseas Chinese. Number 2 is owned by the Gulf Arabs. The Gulf Arabs, depending on the price of oil, is about $20 trillion. The third pool of capital, believe it or not, is Dutch. The Holland people, who holding companies from the East India Dutch company, they have an immense amount of money. Philips and these companies are Rabobank and other. The fourth is the British East India Company. They still have money hidden all over the world and they invest in countries. The fifth is non-resident Indians. They control $10 trillion. Russian money, etc. You know how much Pakistanis have outside this country? We commissioned a study at Merrill Lynch. We paid $1.5 million to find out these facts that I just told you. Pakistanis are the 12th richest people in the world.
Excellent.
They control almost $600 billion. Who will invest in Pakistan first? Overseas Pakistanis will invest. You need to empower them. Last month, when I was at the OPF conference, the Prime Minister was there, Ishaq Dar was there and everything. And this fact was told to the overseas Pakistanis, give us money. But the government needs to empower the overseas Pakistanis and make their investment robust. Otherwise, they won't invest the money. First, money is not invested just for the investment thing and polite talk. Whenever somebody invests money, they need to know how they will get the money out. The smart people like Al-Haftur, Al-Ghurair, Al-Futain, Al-Nabuda, all the people in Saudi Arabia, I've dealt with these people. They always know how to get the money out first. You're talking about Tamimi, who built the Sectorus Mall. Yes, they already know how they invest and how they get the investment back. So that is the key issue.
Right.
The elephant in the room. Anyway, I get passionate about this because I'm a nationalist of this country.
Great.
I'm Pakistani, and I want Pakistan to succeed. Pakistan first, do everything which is good for Pakistan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your passion, clarity, and conviction, and I'm sure we can take advantage of your experience in standing at some. Yes, I think you need to. So I bring this session to a closure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you to our session chair.
Please present.
Now we will call upon the President IRS to distribute the mementos to our esteemed expert as well as the session chair. Now, President IRS for the closing remarks. Sir, floor is yours.
I apologize.
Yeah, of course, I understand. And thanks for coming. Huge. Thank you. Well, we finally draw this remarkable three-day conference to a close. And I stand before you with a profound sense of gratitude, reflection, and renewed hope. Pathways to peace and progress in these turbulent times, and we have seen how turbulent the times can get in our region. It's a testament in the collective will of thinkers, diplomats, policymakers, and academics who believe that dialogue remains our most powerful tool in shaping a better future. Over the past few days, we have traversed complex terrain. We have debated the role of diplomacy in development, explored the indispensability of regional cooperation for climate resilience, unpacked the shifting sands of global power politics, and reflected on the perils and promises of our bilateral and multilateral relations within the region and beyond. Today, we turned our attention to the moral imperative of interfaith harmony and the economic potential that lies in regional integration. What has emerged is clear. Peace and prosperity are neither automatic nor accidental. They are the outcomes of the intentional choices, bold leadership, and a willingness to engage across divides. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said wisely, it isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. I think this could be the biggest message for India today. They have to believe in peace. And if they have to believe in peace, they have to show it in their actions. Because what they did last night, unfortunately, I don't know why, whenever they have to attack Pakistan, it's always done in the middle of the night, early hours of the morning. I don't know why. Pakistan has been always desirous of peace and stability in the region. And for the last many days, we have been impressing upon the international community the need to engage with India because, our dialogue is broken with them. And to persuade them to take the path of peaceful dialogue. We said that, okay, we condemn terrorism. We condemn what happened on 22nd April because we have always condemned terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. We condone you for the deaths that were caused by that, as the world did. And we offered that we can have an unbiased, transparent investigation. India could have conducted it through third parties in the world, and we would have joined it. We offered that. But instead of doing that, India just took the path of accusations, not substantiated by any verifiable evidence, and then started escalating. And that spiral of escalation has eventually led to a military confrontation. We still hope that sanity will prevail in India. We have given a befitting reply to India. As per the media reports, both national and international, some of their top planes, the one they had the great hubris about, the Rafales and others, they have been felled. But we still don't want war. Pakistan would never want a war. We would want always peaceful dialogue to resolve whatever disputes and issues we have with India. We will always show restraint, and we will always cooperate against terrorism, because we are the biggest victims of terrorism in the world. We reject hostility. We reject skepticism. We want to promote trust and respect and have a peaceful neighborhood, a neighborhood which houses a quarter of the world population. Yet, as these challenges loom large, I'm inspired by the ideas that have been shared here. Ideas that point to a different, better path. A path where faith is a force for unity, not division, as Modi is trying to do in India. Where economies connect rather than compete. A path where peace is pursued not as a distant dream, but as a shared and achievable goal. The Institute of Regional Studies is proud to have provided this platform. And I'm proud of all my team members who worked tirelessly to make this happen. A big hand of applause for all of them. We went to the forum where the debate was thoughtful, and it has been. Where any disagreements in terms of perceptions, differences of perceptions should be respectful, and they have been. You have seen from this platform, views have been expressed which we may not agree with, but the freedom of expression of those views was absolutely there. IRS would redouble its efforts to serve as a crucible of insight, equipping policymakers with evidence-based analysis to make informed, courageous decisions in turbulent times. As we part ways today, I leave you with the words of Kofi Annan. Peace is not a state. It is a process. It is not an endpoint. It is a journey we must travel together. Let us commit to continuing this journey, not as passive observers, but as active agents of change in our respective fields and countries. On behalf of the Institute of Regional Studies, all my team, I extend my deepest thanks to all the speakers who were here in the last 3 days, all the panelists, all the participants, all our partners, and co-organizers. Serena, next time maybe Serena would think of becoming a financial partner as well. This time we couldn't contribute, but I talked to Bhavani Saab about that, inshallah. May the spirit of collaboration forged here continue to guide us long after these halls have emptied today. I thank you all for being here, even with the drumbeat of war getting louder today. Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now please join us for high tea, which marks the conclusion of our conference.